and thought you might want to see the inside of my tent, and also decided on an early start. I set the alarm for 6 o'clock. Yesterday I was a bit late setting off. It was because I went to the post office to get the postcards, so good reason, but it meant I wasn't underway till about 9:30, and that eats into the day, and so I didn't get here till sort of 8:15 or so. So this is my tent. It's the Big Agnes tiger wall, and I'm delighted with it. It's extremely lightweight, but really quite spacious for a lightweight tent. As you can see, there's my sleeping bag, and it's a two-person tent, which means I can have room for my stuff either side, and it's got two vestibules. There's one door there and the other door round on the other side, and it's a bit of a mess, but these are my various sort of bags that I carry everything in, so it really helps to keep everything a bit tidier, to have these sort of sacks which you can stuff things into. So I've got one for clothing, one for food, one for what I call miscellaneous, which is all odds and ends like first aid kit and a spare repair kit and everything, and there's one for the cooking stove, which is out at the moment. I've just had my breakfast in bed. There's my stove, and there's my cup of tea, and with two vestibules you can put stuff either side. There's the boots sitting outside in that vestibule, and then over there is my waterproof jacket, and underneath it a bit hidden the rucksack. So it was good to get out and have my first proper wild camp last night, completely silent apart from the constant sound of rushing water just from the nearby stream, which isn't disturbing. In fact, it's quite lulling and peaceful. It was cold in the night. I ended up wearing my jacket, as you can see I've got on, and with that on it's pretty cosy. So time to get up and get underway and see how I do today. I'm up and away before 8 o'clock, so that's a good early start. For me, the mornings are the best times of the day. Packed up, and I'm now walking along this coastal path, well, sorry, shore path of Loch Nid, and that's the view around here. I was camping just, you can't quite see, just over that hill there. So the packed up the tent successfully, had a good night's sleep, will be a bit cold until I put more clothing on. And the plan for today, well, we'll see how we go. It's a few kilometres along the path I'm on at the moment, along the side of the loch, and then it continues along the side of the river, and then we're down to a little bit of a choice point, because there's either straight on to continue or a dog leg to the left. The reason for doing that is it's supposed to be very pretty, right by the water's edge, and it leads down to Shenavail, is that how it's pronounced, bothy, and it would be quite nice to go and have a look at that, and there's supposed to be some good camping along there, so that would be good to investigate. So on one hand I'd like to do the dog leg, on the other it adds extra distance into the day, and I have been finding the distances a little bit stretching on first couple of days, and there's quite a bit of ascent today. So I think I'll make the decision when I get there. It'll be what's that, about 5 kilometres, so that's going to be about an hour and a half or so, and we'll see how we're doing then. So just have another look round at the scenery. I've reached the point where I have to make a choice between the dogleg and the direct route. The direct route goes sort of up there, so it's a fairly steep sort of ascent up there, or the dogleg continues along this path following the river all the way down to the loch at the end, and then makes the ascent up to the same point, but going up from that sort of diagonal line up there. So the ascent is the same amount, obviously, to join up, but it's slightly less steep if one does the dogleg route. But there's a disadvantage. Well, one's got to walk about 3 kilometres along this path, but it's fairly flat, so that'll add 3k to the distance and about an hour's walking. But I think I'm going to do it. The weather seems okay. It's tried to rain, but actually it's looking brighter now. But also, if I go into the bothy at the end, I can cook up, I can have a cup of coffee and maybe some lunch, and that'll give me fresh legs to then tackle the ascent up there. So the dogleg it is. Speak to you again when I get there. Shenavail bothy hoves into view. There it is. I'll be in there shortly, but I'm glad I came this way because it's a completely different landscape. You're still surrounded by towering mountains, impressive scenery, but if you look down at the valley floor, or the glen floor I suppose we should call it, it's quite different. It's wide, it's flattish, it's green and lush. The river has widened out and so is slowing far more smoothly, and it's heading out there to the loch over there. So it's a nice contrast to where I spent last night. Let's head to the bothy. I've arrived at the bothy now, so come on inside and we'll have a quick look round. It's pretty dark, there's no electric light of course, so this is in through the front door, and then you turn left for the lounge, I suppose we'd call it, with the fireplace there, and then I guess we'd call that the kitchen area. I've just made myself a cup of coffee with my stove there, so that's just brewing. Through here is one of the bedrooms, if we can call it that. There is a wooden planking on the floor, you don't have to sleep on the stone floor, and there's even some sort of rubber matting things down, though they wouldn't provide much in the way of protection. And if we go outside, well, round again, not outside, then back to the front door, there's a staircase up here that looks quite nice and new and modern. Would grace a house. Up the stairs into the attic, I guess this would be, with Velux windows and just a large floor area. So it could sleep a lot of people, although that would not necessarily be very pleasant. It's been 2.5 hours since I left the bothy. The guidebook says from the bothy is one of the easier stages. Well, so far I'd beg to differ. It's been uphill all the way, steep at first and then relentless, and really rough terrain, bogs, rocks. Just to give you an idea of what one's been walking across, have a look at this terrain. That's the path. There's 2 people down there on the path. So as you can see, it's pretty inhospitable sort of terrain. Hopefully it promises me a 4x4 track sometime, but I've got a bit to go for that yet, I think. So maybe that will then get a little bit easier, fingers crossed. These falls are just above Corrie Halley, which really is nothing there except a post box. I found the 4x4 track which I was promised in the guidebook, and it did lead all the way down to Corrie Halley. I met a lovely couple on the way down there, or they caught up with me. We got chatting for a bit. They aren't doing the Cape Wrath Trail, but he has done it last year, so knew all about it. So we had a great chat about what to expect and how he got on, how I'm getting on. And then they were so kind, they asked if I was alright for food and mentioned energy bars, and I am actually going through them at a faster rate than I'd anticipated. So I'm pretty well run out until I get my resupply at Oykel Bridge, and so they kindly gave me 2 big energy bars and a pack of oatmeal biscuits. So names are Adam and I think Jessica, but apologies if that was wrong, but they'll know who they are and they're on this group, so thank you very much. And that just shows the kindness of people on the trail. Let's just have a look at those falls behind me, cascading down from up the top there, down. It meant I could fill my water bottles here. I'd run out of water, so that's good. And then they run all the way down there. It's been a busy day for people on the trail today. Not busy as in Lake District busy, but generally I'd be walking pretty well the whole day and talking maybe to 1 or 2 people. But today, above on the way out of Shenavail, bothy, there was a family with 2 children, and then 3 couples, including the kind couple who gave me the energy bars, and a man on his own. And a bit lower down, I caught up with the 2 ladies who were camping at Loch Nid last night that I mentioned. I'd left before them, but because I did the dog leg by Shenavail bothy, they hadn't done that, so they'd overtaken me. Unfortunately, she's picked up an injury and was going to have to give up at Corrie Halley, I think, and return in the autumn. So if you're seeing this, sorry to hear that. Hope you got home all right, and good luck for next year. It was a horrible climb up to this place where I am now, these waterfalls. It was up through a field, but on a really uncleared track path, in fact. Totally muddy, boggy, overgrown, fallen trees blocking it. Oh, an absolute nightmare. Anyway, I emerged from it, and then you come out up here, and it looks now as though the trail gets quite a bit easier. It's heading off up there. That's the direction of travel. Let's have a look at where I've been today. So I camped last night here at Loch Nid. Absolutely lovely spot, isolated, just beautiful views. Up this morning, and then a really nice walk this morning, heading north, following the river, past a waterfall down here for about 4 kilometres. Very nice, fairly comfortable, fairly easy walk down the glen. And then this is the choice point that I mentioned. So one can either go straight on northwards up there, but what I did, took the dog leg, so I turned left, headed, followed the river, continued on the river down here. Lovely walk down to the end here, and then there you can see is the Shenavail bothy. So that's where I stopped and had a coffee and some lunch. And then the hard work started. So out the back of the bothy, and a very steep climb up here. You can see the contours really packed. And then the gradient eased a bit here, but it's still relentlessly uphill, 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 all the way, well, up to here, I think 402. Somewhere about here is where I met the lovely couple who gave me some energy bars. And then you join this 4x4 track, which comes down here, heads north and goes down here. That's nice, really quite fast walking, although it's a bit disheartening as you walk down here all the way. You're looking across the glen and you can see you've got to go up the other side, all the downhill you've got to go back up again. Anyway, you come down here, turn left for about half a kilometre, and then right here. This bit is only a short little bit of greenery on the map, but this was the absolutely hellish walk up this, across this field, very steep, really muddy and slippy in places, couldn't get any grip, overgrown, fallen trees, just took ages. Finally you come clear of that, you come out up here to a stream and a waterfall here, which is really quite pleasant, and then it's just steadily heading east across here. So we'll go down to the next map, so it's just whipping down here, and so you're heading along here and going eastward, and this is uphill again all the way, steady but uphill all the contours till about here, when it finally flattens, and then I'm camped for the night just here by Loch Nid, just there. So that was today's journey. Good morning, except it's not such a good morning. It's very grey and wet. It's just raining very lightly at the moment, but it did rain in the night. But this is where I spent last night. It's between, well, a few kilometres before Inverlael. The guidebook says there's nowhere suitable for camping here. Well, I don't think this is too bad, is it? But it's going to be a fairly cold and wet day, I fear, and I've got quite a long day to go, so there may not be too much filming today. I'll tell you how I get on, well, certainly at the end of the day, and try and do a few quick updates during the day. Let's give you a quick update. So I packed up my tent and headed down from last night's camp. Bit wet and miserable and cold, but it's maybe slightly improving. Down to Inverlael. That's a useful spot if you want to go to Ullapool. That's the break point. The trail itself doesn't pass through Ullapool, so you'd have to either get a taxi or hitch a ride. If you do that, you don't need to walk back out or get back out, because there is an alternative route from Ullapool that heads north that will join up with this trail. For those following the guidebook, I think well, it's either an error or they've rerouted the path. When you come down for Inverlael to the virtually to the road, it says cross a field on a diagonal path and then come to a gate. Well, I did all that. And the book then says turn left on a small road, but that's not correct. At least the path, diagonal path I took, leads to a crossroads, and you take the northern route out of there. So I don't know if they changed the path. There were some quite modern looking gates. Just looking behind me there, I'm on a Forestry Commission road, and a couple of vehicles have gone along. So anyway, look out for that if you're doing the trail. And on the way down I met a chap called Tim Aspin. Hello Tim, if you're seeing this, who's walking from Land's End to John O'Groats. And well, he said he's doing it by the long route. Well, I don't quite know what that is. It sounds long enough if you go in a straight line. Anyway, very nice chap, had a good chat. Down to Inverlael, filled up my water bottles, and now the hard work starts. It's through a Forestry Commission plantation at the moment, so I'm taking the opportunity to talk to you, because these are relatively easy paths, but the guidebook says it gets a lot tougher later. So I'll give you a look round, although there's not a lot to see in a forestry Commission forest. But some big hills over there. Well, I've just had the most amazing bit of good luck. I was feeling a bit down and disheartened. I didn't have much energy this morning. My legs were feeling tired. I came into the Forestry Commission as you come out of Inverlael, and I really was starting to think, oh, I'm not going to make my point tonight, and thinking, can I add an extra day in, or do I just accept it's all too much for me and give up and whatever. Anyway, I was just leaving the forest, and I now know it's the most horrendous track up. It's not a pleasant track, it's a sort of shaly, shingly thing, up and up and up and up. Anyway, I'd only just started it, and this antiquated caterpillar truck thing came chuntering up, stopped and said, do you want a lift? I said, oh yes please. They're over there, you might see them. They're doing the restoring the peat bogs. So there you can see, well, there's the machines working, and that little green vehicle is what brought me up here. And it thundered up, well, thundered is a bit, not speed wise, but noise and crunching along wise, but up and up and up, all the hard work. It would have taken me at least 3 hours, if, oh, well, I might even have given up. Instead of which, here I am at the top, at the highest point, near enough, at this pillar, and these are the views all around. It's kind of fairly desolate up here. It's pretty cold. It's not raining, but it's quite windy, so it's not pleasant, but it is typical Scottish scenery. There's the men working way in the distance. Anyway, that has done all the hard work. It's restored my spirits, and we'll see. I should get to I should get beyond to where I was planning now. I'm down from the top of the fells, from where the caterpillar truck kindly dropped me off, which just made life so brilliant. And this is one of the most famous glens in Scotland, one of the most remote and beautiful, and with a unique ecosystem. Unfortunately, you're not seeing it on the best of its days. If I pan into the mountains over there, you'll see they disappear in mist over there. It's been pretty drizzly most of the day, and a bit of a cold, wet wind. So the plan is, because I gained that extra time, to walk down this river for 2.5 kilometres, and then a bit of crossing over, and then another river that leads up to a loch, and there's Knockdamph, bothy by the side of that. So I wasn't ever hoping to make that wasn't in my original plans, but I think now that's feasible, and that will gain me an impressive waterfall walking down the glen. That's where I'm heading. And another even more impressive one. Look at that for a sight. And the rocky crag formations around it. Shame it needs a little bit of sunshine to brighten it up. Here's today's trip. So last night was spent just here at Loch and Tionpain up, and then this starts going gradually descending downhill down towards Inverlael. This is the slight sort of circuitous bit that didn't seem to correspond with the guidebook, and then walk along this quiet road. Filled up my water bottles there at the river. Then it's about a kilometre north along the road turn right, and then this is into the Forestry Commission land. So this is a bit tedious because it's along here over a couple of bridges, left, right, left, and then all the way back along to here. And I stopped and had some lunch here to give me a bit of energy, and then this was just leaving the forestry, and this is where I got my lift. Now just look at those contours, how closely packed in they are. So that saved me all of that, and continuing on up here up to this cairn where I've written cairn, so that's where I got dropped off. It then continued round, following around on the contours around here before heading down to these rivers, which got a bit complicated. You have to, where these ruins are, cross the river and then head a bit north and then head along this river. This is actually the one where I got on the, crossed over it, whereas I should have stayed on the eastern bank. I crossed over onto the west bank and followed it along here, so I actually had to cross there, which was quite tricky. And this again is down into a ravine. There's no real path here. See those dotted lines? Those indicate there's really nothing to follow. So it was all a pretty tricky bit to do this, although it's not very great distance, up finally to this Loch Nid. And then this is disheartening because you actually want to just go straight along the loch, but actually it takes you back off here uphill yet again before you turn right and then take the higher level path, which does eventually come back down to the loch side. And there you can see underlined Knockdamph, Bothy, there it is. That's where I spent the night. Good morning. So this is where I stayed last night in the end. It's Knockdamph Bothy, and a lovely little bothy, and there were two other people in there, but I had a room to myself. Someone from Germany and Bill, the Scottish chap I met previously at Kinloch. But yesterday was a tough old day in the end. I got that lift in the caterpillar truck, which was an absolute blessing, but I still struggled from there on with Glen to Surrey, which the guidebook says is an ordeal. And so eventually I got here at about 9:15 last night, which was 13 and a half hours walking, feeling pretty, well, very exhausted. But I am slightly ahead of my plan. My original plan would have had me a few kilometres back down the trail, and in reality, if I hadn't got the caterpillar ride, I'd have been many kilometres back down the trail. So we'll see how we get on today. It's Oykel Bridge is the next stop, which is where I pick up my resupply parcel and hopefully get a proper food lunch at the bar food, and that should replenish me. This is a magnificent morning, and it's big country out here, wide glens, big hills, a good breeze. So I've left the bothy. I was feeling quite disheartened yesterday. It was a long day in the end. Ooh. And I was feeling very tired, and I pretty much come to the decision I wasn't going to make it, and of course I still may not, but a good night's sleep, there were two lovely people in the bothy, Lena from Germany and Bill from Scotland, who cheered me up and gave me encouragement. So I think it all depends how today goes. I've got a sort of plan. My staying at the bothy last night was 2 or 3 kilometres ahead of my original plan. So I'm hoping get to Oykel Bridge Hotel, and if they're doing bar food, have some good food, good lunch, nourishment. And then the trail from there on is a bit like this, I think, a sort of 4x4 rough track, but that's fine. I don't mind those. You can walk at 3 miles an hour, you can get into a rhythm. I'm fine on this sort of stuff. It's the very steep, challenging uphill, boggy, rocky sections, of which there are many, which have really sapped my stamina and my morale. So if I can have a good afternoon after Oykel Bridge and get further ahead on my original plan, then I might be about 8 kilometres to the good, which of course means I can, so to speak, share that out amongst the remaining days. And the last 2 days to Sandwood Bay and to the Cape are shorter ones anyway, so I've really only got 4 potentially challenging days left, and I can make them each a little bit shorter, and maybe it's possible. So I'm still in 2 minds, but whereas yesterday evening I'd pretty much decided to call it off, or at least my plan in my head was to go to Knockdamph and get the bus from there, take the same day that I should have been finishing and getting to Durness, so 6 days from now, but instead of aiming for Durness, just aim for Knockdamph, so I'd have 6 days to do 4 stages, so clearly extra time. Anyway, that was my plan in my head last night. The plan for today at the moment is to see if I can have a good walk today on fairly good 4x4 tracks and trails and get a bit of mileage in the bank. Oykel Bridge, I've arrived here, really picturesque, beautiful scene, beautiful river, though the walk down was a bit of a route march, but I've arrived, and over this way is the hotel of the same name, Oykel Bridge Hotel. Sadly, my trip came to an abrupt and totally unexpected stop at this point. My resupply parcel posted to the Oykel Bridge Hotel hadn't arrived, and so with no food and no supplies for the following 6 days and no way of sourcing any, I had no choice but to abandon the trip there and then, which was a great disappointment. Taxi to Legg Station, train to Inverness, overnight in Inverness, and home with my tail between my legs. But I'll be back in the autumn to complete the final stage, I hope, from Oykel to the lighthouse. If you want to see my video diary of that, please click on the subscribe button and hit the bell and you'll get a notification. If you enjoyed watching this so far, please give me a click on the like. It all helps to grow the channel. Thanks for watching.